When you think of the curriculum at school, which is where our sort of early learning comes from, the curriculum is very male-driven. It's very, what I call, very left-brain. He is like a spirit guide. He is like a medium, we call him. I always go, he's quite big, so I go, you a medium or a lion?
Welcome to episode 67, ladies and gentlemen, of the Optimize Me Now podcast. I am your host, Jamie Keeling, the founder of Bulletproof Business Academy, where we deliver results-focused business accelerator programs designed to give struggling business owners the tools and tactics you need to survive, thrive, and grow. If you're a business owner struggling in your business right now, or you just don't know how to take it to the next level, then you can download my Bulletproof Business app at bit.ly/Bulletproof Android if you're a filthy Android user, or if you're a sexy Apple user, you can, there's obviously no bias there for me, bit.ly/Bulletproof Business, and you can get yours there. It's jam-packed with everything you need to be successful in business, from free training, quizzes and content, to accountability and powerful tools and calculators designed to give you and your business the boost it needs. Please remember also to subscribe to this podcast. Do it now if you haven't already. Leave us a review as well, because it helps others to find great content that's going to help them reach levels of peak performance in their lives. We go out with this show every Friday on Facebook at 10:30 a.m. So if you haven't already, get yourselves over there and connect with me so that you can join in live. So today we have another fabulous guest in the form of the wonderful Tony Vee. Tony is an award-winning entrepreneur, an expert in high-performance mindset, and one of the founders of MasterCoach with his amazing wife, Nicki Vee. Tony and Nikki have assisted literally hundreds of people in becoming high-paid, in-demand coaches with their training and mentoring programs. They've built multiple multi-six-figure businesses, and having been personally coached by both Tony and Nikki, I can vouch for how truly amazing these guys are at what they do. Tony's energy is something else, and his ability to connect with his clients at the deepest levels and really understand what they need to move forward is one of his greatest assets. You are going to learn so much from one of the best in the business today, folks. So strap in and join me in extending a very warm welcome to the one, the only, Mr. Tony Vee. Welcome to the show, sir.
Right. So, well, firstly, thank you for having me, and we're off and running here. So, so my how did I get into personal development and Tony Robbins is a great story, because firstly, I spent the first 47 years of my life thinking that Croydon, which was centre of the universe. For football fans, that's the home of Crystal Palace. So I was born very near the ground, and literally thought that's all there was. And then I was pretty successful in terms of business. I had my own business, very entrepreneurial when I was 19, made loads of money, had big houses, big cars, all of that sort of stuff. But one day I was into retailing, so I had retail shops. And one day this lady came into my shop, and I knew her as a customer. She'd come in every week. And then she said to me, you need to buy this book. And she gave me, a piece of paper. So I don't know if you've ever had someone tell you, you've got to read this book. You normally don't take a lot of notice, do you? So, but anyway, she was very persistent. She came in every week. Have you got the book yet? Have you got the book yet? And I'm going, no, I haven't got the book yet. I'm very dyslexic, which I nowadays see as a gift, whereas in my old world, I saw it as a nightmare. So I said to her, I don't really read, to be fair. It's not my subject. But anyway, one day she's come in and she's bought a Waterstones bag with her, and she's bought me the book. She is determined, this woman. So anyway, I take the book home in the bag, put it on my desk. And then every week she came in and said, have you read the book? Have you read the book? And I'm going, no, I haven't read the book. Worked very hard, long hours, that sort of stuff. But one day I had a day off, and I literally, did this crazy thing and picked the book up and went and had a bath. And anyway, it was one of those moments where you have to keep turning the hot tap on, because the book was so good that I just didn't want to put it down. And so I never actually read the whole book. I probably read a quarter of the book, and I remember leaving it in my car and forgetting it, and then I sold my car. So I always think, well, whoever bought my car actually got the bonus of the book. It was in the back seat thing, But anyway, that book was a Tony Robbins book. It's called Awaken the Giant Within. And what was so life-changing for me was the fact that I realized very quickly into the book. In fact, it made me a little bit annoyed. It made me a little bit annoyed from the viewpoint that I wondered why I was 47 years old and nobody had ever taught me this. It just felt wrong that this was not taught. I found it very hard at school. I've been taught, geography, history. Nothing of that has ever helped me. But what I read in this book, I'm going, wow, this is like life-changing. And the first thing that it taught me, or got me to question, actually, because great coaches ask great questions. So it got me to question myself about my current beliefs. And I realized that my beliefs were really a massive challenge. They weren't really serving me. And actually, I started to question, where did I get these beliefs from? And I started to realize they're not even mine. I've inherited them. I've inherited them, primarily from my family, my parents, then, going through school. I've got all these beliefs about life, but they are not serving me. Anyway, of course, I was very excited. Put the book back on the side, go back to my shop, and the lady comes in on Saturday, asks me the question, have you read the book? I'm going, I've read the book. I've only read a quarter. And it's absolutely amazing. And I've had this realization. And then she's ready. She's ready with the next question. Do you want to go to a seminar? So I'm fully in, so I've just said yes. And I was really busy. My shop was very successful. I was very busy at the time, and I never do. And I gave them my credit card and said, yeah, look, just book what you need. Give me my card back, Anyway, she's come back next Saturday, give me my card back, and then didn't sort of say anything. And anyway, a month or so later, I got my credit card statement, and it had like 800 and some odd pounds taken off my card from somebody in Cyprus. And I've gone, bloody hell, I've never even been to Cyprus. So I phoned the card people, said, look, somebody's nicked my card, they've used it, it's Cyprus, it can't be me, I've never been to Cyprus. And then I find out that Tony Robbins' European sort of office is in Cyprus, and it's 800 quid to go to this seminar. Now, I've been to a few business seminars, but 800 quid seemed a lot to me at the time. This is like 2000, So anyway, she came in Saturday and I said, hey, I found out that, it's 800 quid to go to this seminar, tell me more about it. When is it? Where is it? That sort of stuff. And she said, you need to phone this guy. His name's Bob, and he'll tell you all about it. So I ring him up and he says, he's like a hyped up American. He's like a double glazing salesman, I always said. And he and I said to him, so tell me all about this seminar. It's 800 quid. That sounds a lot. What hotel is it at? And he said it's not at a hotel. And I said, what do you mean it's not a hotel? He said, well, it's at like the Wembley Arena. And so I said, okay, well, how many people are going then if it's at the Wembley Arena? And he's gone, well, 5,000 people are going. And I'm going, okay, so, but it doesn't include a hotel. Okay, he said, you'll have to sort that out yourself. I'm going, okay. Does it include food? I mean, I'm a real newbie. And he's gone, no, there'll be people selling food there. He said, but look, actually you've got a bog off. You bought one ticket, you've got one free. So I said, well, I only want one. Can I have 400 quid back? And he's gone, no, you need to find somebody else to bring. And I'm thinking, actually, that now, of course, I think actually that's not a bad strategy to fill up your seminar, is it? But anyway, so I found it really, really hard to find someone to go with me. And thank you for sharing that I won this award. I did win this amazing business award where Richard Branson came second and Sainsbury's came third. And my little business won.
Wow.
And I won in the year 2000, I won Website Design of the Year award. And basically, my business was tropical fish. And I always say that I'd saved thousands of tropical fish lives by creating a test that helped people find out when their fish weren't well, what was going wrong. Anyway, these guys developed a website and they got it on the internet, and I managed to sell it to loads of other shops. It's sort of used around the world now to evaluate an aquarium if your fish aren't well, to find out what's going on and what you need to do to get it to work. Yeah. So anyway, that all happened at the same sort of time that I've gone to Tony Robbins. And so effectively, I go along and I asked one of the guys that helped me build the website, would you like to come with me? And he was very skeptical. You know, he's looked on the website and he's gone, do you know what? You don't want to get involved with those Americans. You know, they're like slap happy, clappy people. You know, I'm not really. But anyway, I'll come. But you know, and I'll give you the 400 quid if I stay. Now it started on a Friday night, finished on a Monday. Anyway, I go along and I've taken literally we've stopped to get some sandwiches and a bottle of Coke and a pork pie type thing, you know, and. After about an hour or so of the madness that goes on at a Tony Robbins seminar, for which I was not prepared at all, people dancing on seats, there's chaos going on, you know, and like for your 400 quid a ticket, you didn't even get a seat. You had to like run in to find a seat. Anyway, after about half an hour, me and my friend are like sitting there a little bit, well, this is mental. It's more like a pop concert than it is like a seminar. But anyway, after about half an hour, Tony's like got me just like he did in the book. He's got me on the basis that, I've never thought of life like that. So anyway, then he did like an exercise. And so I like jumped out my seat to join in this exercise. And my mate's like sitting there still with his arms folded going, well, you're getting into it a bit, aren't you? And I said, well, you know, look, I paid all this money. I'm going to join in, you know. So anyway, it was like, then I found out that we are going to walk on fire. And I said to my mate, you know, look, what's this all about walking on fire? How does that all work? He said, no, we do it tonight. Didn't you read the thing? I said, no, I didn't read it. So anyway, so I'm now actually a bit of fears in my body going, bloody hell, how do you walk on fire? But look, Tony is fantastic. He's got us, you know, into a state where we can do this. And that was my first realization, which is, you know, it's a fantastic metaphor. I'm sure many of your viewers have done this wow, if you can do that, what else can you do? So it's really challenging your beliefs. I also had a couple of other big breakthroughs, but actually after that and after winning the award, I decided, in fact, I was invited to dinner by the judges of the award, of which one was the head of Bank of Scotland, one was head of BT, and the other was the head of British Gas. You know, it was a serious award. And they invited me to dinner in London. And so I've gone along and they asked me a life-changing question, which is another reason I just love coaching so much. You know, one question that they asked me, it wasn't a great question, it was just a question. They just said to me, what are you going to do now you have won this award? And, you know, again, that made me sort of go inside. And I basically said to them, look, I have helped thousands of people keep a great aquarium. I've saved hundreds of thousands of fish lives. And basically, I think, you know, what I've noticed with people is it's never a problem with the fish. They don't have a problem with the fish. The problem is the people. So I'd like to, really help the people in the way that I've helped the fish. So I sort of came back from the meeting and I literally decided to give up my business, which I'd had for 30 odd years. So I gave it to my kids, which caused a bit of an uproar. But anyway, that business is still running today. My eldest son still runs it and it's all good. But actually, I went off and decided to go, right, what could I do to help humans? You know, knowing what I know now, what could I do? And so I thought, well, look, I created this test for fish. Could I create a test for humans? So I did this sort of mock-up of a very, very simple test. I mean, it was so simple, it was ridiculous. And it's based on a series of questions. So the first person I tested was myself. I called it the happy test. And I found out just by asking myself these powerful questions that at best I was like half happy. I actually scored 54 out of 100. And so I sort of thought to myself, wow, what is in this other 47%, 46%? Like, I don't know what's in this 46%, but if I'm half happy, what is going on, So it set me off on a sort of a journey to find out what was in the missing gap. I decided I would test loads of other people. So I got a lady in America to test 50 random people in the street in New York. I tested 50 people in Croydon, which I would say was never going to be a great result anyway. And then I had a girl in Frankfurt test 50 people in Frankfurt, and I got all the results and collated them. And the average happiness score was 55.
Wow.
So my first gambit was, oh my God, I'm 1% less happy than the rest of all these people. But anyway, it led me to go, do you know what? I'm going to take a year out of my life and I'm going to find out what is in this gap. I'm going to solve this. So I did reluctantly, I have to say, go back to Tony Robbins. Reluctantly, because I did not like the way he made the sale. In fact, I was a bit of an anti, and I don't do anti anymore, but, I'm going, hold on a minute. We've got me put my hand up saying yes, like hundreds of times. And now you're trying to sell me something for like $10,000. And I felt that was like outrageous, But anyway, I still absolutely loved it. I walked out of there, having gone in with a sandwich, a Coke and a pork pie. I walked out a vegan going, look, I'm going to test what being a vegan is like, And I decided I would eat different food. I'd see what I could do to change my beliefs. And I actually took a whole year, literally, and I wrote down everything that I did. And I created a book. I've never published the book. I called it It's All Energy, from an ordinary to an extraordinary life. And I left Croydon behind and literally went to find out what is this all about. So I ended up going back to Tony Robbins lots of time, becoming one of his coaches, I was never officially a trainer, but I was a trainer on some of his events. I was a raving fan, got to know him. Nicki and me joined his platinum circle, which means you go on holiday with him. So we got to know him a bit. And there was one point where he said, people are filling in my forms and they're putting your events on it, because Nicki and me started doing these relationship events. And he said, I'm asking them, what events are you going to? And they keep writing down that they keep going to the Happy House, which is what we called our house.
It's a brilliant
and they're
name.
Doing your events. And he said, yeah. So he literally encouraged us, as he does. He said, look, I really love it that people follow me, but I don't want followers. It's why he called his Netflix things, I'm not your guru. He said, I don't want followers. I want people that go away, take what they've learned and take action, and you two are like absolutely the best people I've ever seen do this. So please, I love it that you come and help and coach and train all these people, but I think you should go off and do your own thing.
Wow.
Which is really what we did. We literally went off and we got married. We met at a Tony Robbins event and got married a month later, which was crazy. But literally we got married, and mostly Tony Robbins people turned up at our wedding. We got married 3 times, and once in America, once in the UK is more very official, and once on the Great Wall of China with Tony.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
So there was these sort of little ceremonies. It was amazing. And,
which of those was your favorite?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, they're all, I think, it's crazy, isn't it? But they all have their bit. I don't know, really. I don't think I've got a favorite. There were 3 incredible experiences.
What was your main takeaway from each of those experiences then?
Yeah, so I think the Great Wall of China was amazing, because we went with like 25 people and Tony. And he does these crazy things, like he's got a big sign on the side of the wall in China, and there's on the Great Wall going Tony Robbins, platinum partners type thing, and then he's got a whole turret where he's got a seminar laid out with blankets, seats, he's got all his mics, his light, everything set up.
Wow.
And then you do this very small thing, so that was very memorable. And what you do, he takes you places you couldn't otherwise go. So that was really great. The American thing was at another Tony Robbins event. One of the trainers was a minister, and we did that with a lot of participants and stuff. So that was amazing. And then our home one, where we officially filled in the forms and all of that, was also amazing because we got married on like a Tuesday, which is a bit weird. But my family, they didn't come. They go, well, we can't come because we work. It was all very short notice. But Tony Robbins people flew in from around the world.
Wow.
And I'm going, see, that's the difference between, people with normal lives, normal beliefs, and people that are, they see life through completely different eyes. And they see everything is possible. They've changed their belief system and they make things happen, So, but yeah, very quickly after that, a lady at our wedding invited us to go to Dublin to do a talk. And so we said, well, what do you want us to talk about? And she said, I want you to tell these people, there was going to be 100 people in Dublin. I want you to tell these people how you got in this relationship, which looks like amazing, which got us sort of going, well, how did we get in this relationship? And from that, we created 2 models, which to this day, tens of thousands of people have used these models about how to have a great relationship. This is everything you were not taught at school. I in fact find it madness that, relationships and also money, wealth, finances, neither of these things are really covered at school. The best you get is a bit of sex education so there aren't, teenage pregnancies. But look, we get into relationships and, in the UK alone, there are 3,000 divorces a week. And you go, why would that be? That is incredible.
What do you think is the main reason for that? What's the cause?
Well, for me, it's lack of education, lack of understanding. When I realised how small my model of life is, how restrictive my beliefs were, how little I understood about humans, how we truly operate, I'm going, it's crazy that we're not taught this stuff. And in fact, it's my mission. It's my mission to get this stuff out to a much, much wider audience. So we created these 2 models. One of them was called, we called it very simply, the red and the green. And the other model is called the pink and the blue. And the red and the green is really all about, I always say to people, look, unknowingly to nearly every person on the planet, there is 2 of you in there. There's absolutely 2 of you in there. And almost nobody knows that. And this basically is a way for me to explain that there's the egoic you. This is what I call your representative. It is not the real you. And then there is you, the real person, the you that's free of an ego. But there's a lot of education to understand how that works and to understand that your ego, it's like the rough number of people walking around, not as them real self, but as their ego representative, is about 95, 96%. And they have no clue, just as I didn't have a clue for 47 years, that inside of you is this completely different human being, that if you free yourself from this egoic self, then magic and miracles literally are everywhere for you to experience. So that's my thing, is I teach primarily about the red and the green. So I call the red world, where 96%-ish of people live. I call that the red world, the ego world, the world of your ego mind. And as you start to learn and understand that, it's like very, very freeing. Yeah, the second model is about the pink and the blue. Okay, so the pink and the blue is how really, I always say to audiences, when you think of the curriculum at school, which is where our sort of early learning comes from, when you think about that, the curriculum is very male driven. It's very, what I call very left brain. It's very, it's just not got feminine energy in it. If you think about it, it's about, numbers, logical stuff really. And this comes from the sort of Victorian times when in the sort of industrial revolution, we were sort of became nuts and bolts of that sort of industrial revolution. I'm going to take my earphones out because I can just hear myself.
No worries.
No worries. So yeah, what the way I see it is we were sort of put into this education system, which really, in many ways, just made us, as I say, a cog in the works of life. And because it was more male-driven, what I see today, well, I would say, look, if you walk through time and go, right, you know, middle Victorian men were not very nice creatures. You know, it's when we conquered the world, you know, raped and pillaged the world, as I sometimes say. And women were very second class. And today, that's still happening in some countries, of course. So look, there's been this sort of move, rightly so, to a more, you know, equaling of the genders. But actually, obviously, we had the Pankhurst situation where, you know, women got their first vote. That happened in like the 1920s, just after the First World War. And then you've got the Second World War, where most of the men have left the country. The women are making the shells and the bullets and the planes and all of that. So this move from male energy to more, you know, females doing, you know, what effectively are more male jobs. And then, of course, we had the 1960s. Germaine Greer came along with the feminist movement. We had the Ford factory strike, where the women are going, well, hold on a minute, we're working as hard as the men, but they're getting more money than us. So all of this is like a move from male-dominated energy towards a more female energy. And, of course, then we have Mrs. Thatcher in the 80s. You know, obviously, you know, if you said, well, look, is Mrs. Thatcher more masculine or more feminine? You pretty much say she's using her male energy, yeah? So there's been a move towards, you know, a feminine movement, which is nothing wrong with that. I think there's, you know, equality is a great thing. The challenge is that I believe that women, it's not feminine, it's feminist. So the feminist is using male energy, not the beautiful, loving, feminine energy that's in every woman. And of course, you know, I would say Mrs. Thatcher had this sort of effect on the housing market. Great when she sold off the council houses, but effectively what that did was to make the house price go up. And today you've got, you know, housing is difficult to afford for young couples. And so both of them have to go to work. So we've ended up forcing people to go to work to be able to afford a house to live in. And I go, that's now we've got this mix up between male and female energy. And the true beautiful feminine energy and the amazing masculine energy, when practiced in a green way, is like gives you the ultimate relationship. I mean, it is just phenomenal. But of course, people don't know about that. We're in the daily ritual of our normal life. And without this information, you get the sort of situations you've got today, where vast numbers of people, my hallucination is probably still the same, at best are sort of half happy. They're half happy with their lot. They're half happy with, even though, you know, look, we live in the Western world. We're very blessed to have the society we've got. But, you know, we're left with about 15 million people living below the poverty line, which is, you know, somewhere around 20% of the population. And you go, how can that be? How could that be? That 15 million, and huge numbers of those are children. So you go, wow, you know, democracy is great on the one hand, but it's got that sort of downside to it. And that downside to me is this lack of education where people don't understand how they as humans truly work and how to get the best out of your life. And they don't understand how male-female energy works. So without those components in your education, you're left in a difficult place. So this is, you know, this is my work really. And I'm just launching, actually. I call it, you know, living your life at a 10 out of 10. How to absolutely get every ounce of joy and happiness and you know, great experience out of your life. How do you do that? So I'm actually going to launch it on YouTube, and I call it the 10 out of 10. It's like a revolution, but I don't really use the the revolution word. I use the movement word. So if people like go, yeah, look, I want to live my life at a 10 out of 10. What do I need to take? So you sort of can join the movement. And I believe that when they learn these components that they otherwise have never been taught, that absolutely everything can change.
So I've got lots of questions, and lots of what you said there really resonates, and I've been through some of these trainings to a medium level with you, so I know how powerful these can be, and especially the stuff around the masculine, feminine, and particularly you've talked about this with me before about the education system being very, very masculine based in its energy. It's very logic, very facts and figures, and you can see how it's a big thing that can hold a lot of people back. You know, we're taught about maths and Pythagorean theory and grammar and all of these good things, which, yes, have a place and they have a purpose. But surely in this day and age, with this information age that we live in, where literally every piece of information, every calculator you need is at the click of a finger in a smartphone in your pocket, surely it would be better to shift the focus of education into more understanding, like you say, how the human mind works, how to understand ourselves better, how to communicate effectively with one another. And it seems that there's a big disconnect there these days. You know, you've got people communicating on a very surface level online, but when it comes to those young people today, in my experience, having a meaningful, real conversation offline, in person, a lot of them really seem to struggle with that. So what needs to happen in the education system, in your mind, in order to bridge that gap?
Yeah, so I think there, basically I've done a lot of research. I've been doing this for since 2001, really. So like 18 or so years, coming on for 20 years. And one thing I've sort of learned is that there are really three key areas of change that need to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I think the seeds need to be sown. If you're going to change, a radical change, it generally takes a sort of generation to happen. So I remember, for example, learning from Tony Robbins in 2001 that sugar is like, a bit of the enemy in some respects. Yeah. He actually, or somebody around him, called it the cocaine of the food industry. So it's, a pretty strong way to describe sugar. But here we are, 20 years later, and we've got like a sugar tax. So I do believe that some of these things, when there's going to be radical change, we're looking at a generation. So I think we need to implant some seeds in the young generation now, where they are able to sort of see life through new filters. So what I've sort of learned is that you need to change things up economically, you need to change things up politically, and you need to change things up socially. So most things will fit into those three buckets. But look, the political one is a challenge. I mean, obviously we're in Brexit times. If you look at the Brexit arguments, all I see, knowing everything I know about humans and human behavior, is I just see red behavior. I see red beliefs. I see, red language. Everything I see is red all the way.
So it's all ego-based stuff.
Because basically, it's just one ego playing against another ego. So when you think of education, if that was in the education system, that actually this is what's going on, and literally I could take anything apart on the TV and show you where their ego is in action. And in fact, most television is ego driven. But once you can see that, you can go, wow, this is like an epidemic. It's worse than that. It's a pandemic. Because everywhere you go, it's like egos are interacting with egos. And so if that was in the education system, but of course, we'd have to transition, because look, we're in that very delicate balance where the money plays such a key role in keeping everything in balance. You can't just switch something on and switch something off. So I do believe it's a learning process. Look, it's taken me, I'm not saying I'm free of my ego, but I understand how I work. So I understand what to do when it's not working and how to change things around.
You're just more aware of it.
It's a bit of a life. Oh, super aware. I go, look, your first step is to become aware. And as you become aware, The other thing you have to do, which is difficult, I mean, I'm not saying this is easy, but some of the questions I ask 3 fun questions, which is, if I'm at a seminar, I always go, put your hand up if you like being blamed. So how many people do you think put their hand up?
Big fat zero, probably.
No one. Yeah, no one. But I go, so what's the truth, though? When things aren't going your way, do you look at yourself and go, what am I doing? Or do you just automatically be reactive and blame somebody else? Well, trust me, if you become the observer of this, you'll just see everybody not taking responsibility, but blaming everybody else. Well, certainly you're in the 90%, because that's the way that that we operate en masse. So, I think as people sort of start to realize that, then what has to happen is you have to accept, and this is the difficult bit, you have to accept that you're doing that. It's not happening to you. You are creating that. So that is like a big, big step. And of course, I say to people as well, my second question is often, well, who here likes being controlled? So, how many people put their hand up to that is, again, it's a big fat zero. So look, the truth is that inadvertently, we are blaming other people for our problems, and we are trying to control them so that we are, we feel, content, happy, safe, secure, whatever, certain, all of those things. When we're doing relationship stuff, if somebody rings us up and they've got a problem, it's not like no one's ever rung us up and said, look, I've got a problem with my relationship. I think I need to sort myself out. The first thing they do is they start telling you about the other person, and what the other person's doing, that is like a nightmare. So all they want to do is have you, because they can't control them, they're saying, well, can you tell them to stop doing this so that my life is fine, They do not. It's like, but this is the ego. The ego does everything it can to not look at itself, because it hates with a vengeance being wrong. So, of course, that's my third favorite question is, who here likes being wrong? Well, of course, nobody puts their hand up. And the truth is, it's your ego. It literally hates with a vengeance being wrong. And it doesn't like being controlled. And so that's why it does blaming. And it's this system, this basic system of the ego, that it creates so much pain in everybody's life.
So if we can suppress that ego and control that ego and become more aware of it, then we can actually eliminate a lot of the problems that causes for us. But the question I've got for you, Tony, is why is it that seems to be the default for, what did you say, about 96% of people? Yes. So I just think it's like the evolution of humans, I call it, So, and I think that it just comes from old times. We've sort of forgotten. It's like, actually, when I teach the red and the green, it's like, if the green is you free of ego, and I start sort of explaining what that looks like, people have a knowing that this is right, this is true, this is real. But they've just, unfortunately, we've like infected each other. It's like we pass on some sort of infectious disease. The egos have passed it on to each other. And the way I describe this is a bit woo-woo. I call it a bit out there stuff. But, some of the most amazing unanswered questions humanity has is, where did we come from? Like, when you ask yourself, where did I come from? That is a very interesting question. Who am I really? How did this all happen? Why am I in this thing I call a body? But because we do so much deletion, we don't ask that. We're busy we're external, trying to make money, pay all our bills. We're all distracted down a road to survive, where actually the real survival mechanism is switched off. So I believe that once people can find that mechanism, I literally say it's like a switch. But if you answered the question, where do I come from? Because, look, Darwin wrote the book in the 1850s, which suggested that we came from monkeys. Pretty much that's taught in schools.
but it was proven late in the 1990s that that's actually not true. It was actually known by Darwin that it was a theory. He called it a theory. It still remains a theory. But often when science, and certainly in the 1800s, come up with a theory, they did everything to prove the theory. They didn't question the theory. They went to prove the theory. And so a lot of research has obviously gone into that. But actually, supposing that's not true, just, that, because look, most people believe, that's why I start with my beliefs. If you believe you came from a monkey, that means what? It gives a sense of something. But if you take that belief away and say, well, we didn't come from monkeys, which Darwin questioned, he said 7 things had to happen for him to be absolutely certain that his theory was correct. And he only ever made 3 of those connections, and the others have never been made. So it still remains a theory. And in fact, these guys proved by finding this ancient body and doing DNA tests on it that actually it could not. There's not a natural path from the monkey to our current state. But who knows that? Very few people. But because we believe it so fervently, if you take that belief away en masse, that's a bit like when, in the 1600s, we thought the world was flat. And then the guy's gone, well, it's round. They locked him up because they're going, well, what does that mean? It's such a radical belief change for all humans that would be dangerous. So we need to keep that, suppressed until there's enough evidence that we could, let it go. So I do believe that is the ego in action. There's a lot of fear. Remember that ego's built around fear. So the taking away of a strong belief that would leave you going, well, where do I come from? How does that all work? Would be dangerous. Potentially, it could be. Because imagine we found out lots of things about ourselves that are not actually true, based on, it could be anything, So anyway, I have questioned my beliefs, so many of my beliefs. And then I've looked for alternative beliefs. And if you change those beliefs, then massive change occurs in you. So my belief I changed around, I more put it as a prophecy than a bit of philosophy, really. So I prophesize, where does your spirit come from? Where does it come from? What is it? How does that all work? So I gave myself a model around that, which I share with some people. And I just go, look, just supposing, if the monkey thing's a theory, let's just look at this as an alternative theory. Yeah. It doesn't have to be true. But if you took this on instead of that, what would that mean about you? And of course, people go, wow, I'd never really thought of it like that. But because that change of beliefs gives you a completely different perspective on life as a whole, suddenly it's like you wake up. There's a part of you that becomes active and operational that previously, because of your belief, was switched off. So that's the sort of thing I do.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, I suppose, in really questioning your own beliefs. And Kevin was talking a lot about this. Went to see him speak last night, and it's a really powerful topic because often we can get very attached to our belief systems and the way we think we are and the way we believe others are and the world is, and it can be very uncomfortable and very scary for us to actually step outside of that and think, oh, well, what if it's this way? What if it's that way? What if I'm wrong? And that's been one of the most powerful things on my journey, is being given that gift of being able to step back and say, well, what if I think this way? What if I adopt this belief? And how would that serve me or otherwise? And what difference would that make in my life and others? So just going back briefly to the school question, obviously changing a system like that is going to be a very slow process. Like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. And it's difficult because you could look at teachers and parents and say, oh, they're not doing good enough, they should be doing so much more. But it's important to remember as well that those people, they're doing the best with what they've got. Most of them were never given those tools in the first place. And so how can we expect them to pass those on to our kids? Accepting that we're not going to change the parents overnight, we're not going to change the system overnight, what advice would you give to those young people, those school-age people, teenagers, college goers, to help them start this process of questioning their own belief system so that they can behave and think of themselves and the world in a way that better serves them?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic question. And look, for me, it's about diving in. It's about, being open to the possibility that there's much more available to us as an individual, as a human, and our potential is way more available than we perhaps been led to believe. And that's not we are where we make any we are. In fact, I always go, we're individually and collectively, this is the journey. And this is like the moment where we could all start to awaken to an awareness that we previously have never had. So I believe this is an exciting time. And for young people to dive into this, they're the best question in many ways, because they're less programmed than us, although it is sort of said that your programming, your ego becomes absolutely rock solid by the time you're about 7 years old.
Really? So that early in
life? By
the
time 7, we now become protective of our beliefs. And the other thing would be to dive into what I call a bit more spiritual development. Science is amazing. I'm not knocking it in any way, shape or form. It's phenomenal, yeah? And it's given us many things in the modern world which, we've just got to be grateful for. Having said that, I would always argue, is what science discovered greater than what science has yet to discover? Well, I think what is discoverable has got to be way, way, way bigger than what we've discovered. So using the mechanism or the having an inclination that we only trust this little bit that we've discovered and we discard everything else is maybe not so smart, but it is the way it is. You hear it all the time. So then the second bucket, which I was put in the middle, is what I call the bucket of the alternatives. These are thinkings, sometimes ancient thinkings, that have not been necessarily proven or certainly accepted by the mainstream sciences, but actually have a lot of weight to them. So, for example, in America right now, I think it was last year or the year before, for the first time ever, and this is partly due to the fact that you have to pay for your medical care there, and if you don't have insurance, that's going to be a costly experience. But if you're medical insurance, then where do you go? Like now, I can't afford medical care, but this is happening in Western Europe as well. More and more people are going to an alternative. They're going to an alternative therapist, somewhere outside of mainstream science. Because look, mainstream science is, again, I'm not knocking doctors, they do an amazing job. Millions of people are going to get treated today by the National Health Service, and they're going to get a phenomenal experience. In fact, I think they get such a bad press. It's almost a disgrace to the press. Having said that, could we at some point take responsibility for our own health, in which case you may go to the alternative route? What might you try on? And that's what I did. I tried everything on that was in the alternative bucket and literally found stuff that is like little known but works incredibly well and leaves you in a place of choice. Because look, again, at seminars, I'll often say, so if you're sick, what do you do? Well, we go to the doctors. So because we're trained to do that, aren't we? We're trained to do that. So, to stop doing that and go, right, I don't feel well, what could I do to sort myself out? Or what do I need to do to stay healthy in the first place? There's not so many people doing that. There is definitely some, and there's definitely a move to that. And in America, for the first time in the last couple of years, more than half of the people have gone to an alternative rather than a medical practitioner. So that's an interesting move. So that's where I see the movement is gradual. Now, on top of that, you've got the third bucket. I call this bucket the esoteric bucket, or sometimes I just for fun call it the woo-woo bucket, where there's absolutely, that any of this will work. But this is a place to experiment on yourself. I call it experiential learning. So you literally dive into something mental, and go, well, how does that all work? So I'll give it one of my favorite examples is that somebody told me about crystals and the power of crystals. And so I thought, right, well, let me find out. Let me find some crystal teacher, Anyway, I bought a few crystals, and I go, well, they're very pretty, but they just look like pretty rocks. So again, think about it. That's a belief. It's something that I don't know, I don't understand. But look, I'm going, well, there's a lot of people out there. In relation to the whole, it will be a very small amount of people. But there are some people that think this is like the best thing they've ever come across. So let me go and experience this. So it didn't take me long to have an experience that I'm going, wow, that's like, okay, that's pretty amazing. If that's true, why do we not know that over here? So anyway, I learned more and more and more about crystals. But look, the truth is that, this planet is a crystal. It's a mineral. So think of crystals as just minerals.
Yeah.
So when we think of crystals, like me, most people are going to go, that's just a pretty rock. But actually, it's a mineral. And these minerals have got unbelievable properties. So, for example, your phone, the phone we're talking on right now, as I understand it, to make it work, it's got around about 140 different minerals to make it work. Because if you think about it, if you took all the minerals away, you haven't got a phone.
Yeah.
So what science has done is it's found a way to get those minerals to interact so that we can use this. The mineral that enables you to swipe it is found in Central Africa, and people are killing each other right now because it's very valuable. There's not so much of it. I don't remember its name, but literally, for that is causing interesting patterns in behavior in African countries where they're digging this mineral out of the ground, without which we can't swipe our phone, So as I sort of started to realize that, the power of the minerals, if you just take a crystal and go, well, how could I use that on its own without, doing this, adding the science to it? What can it do? And I found out that it's got unbelievable powers of healing, for example. So I show people how to use it, and how they can do all these amazing things on their body, to their mind. If you think most people accept as a belief that we're made up of mind, body, and spirit, and that actually, for the most part, you can have a play on how those things work. But we don't walk around going, how's my spirit doing? We just delete it, yeah. Whereas actually, it's a fundamental part of our operation system. So, it's like, you use your computers, but you're not thinking about Windows, or you're not thinking about, your operating system, are you? You're not thinking about that. You're just using it. So we are using our spirit without really realizing its power. So I often say, when you're typing into Word, as a document, we all write letters with it, or we do just this basic function. But typing a few letters into Word is about, that would be equivalent of, say, 1% of its functionality. It can do so many things that most people, when they press all the buttons at the top, they haven't got a clue how it works. They write a letter with it and then just delete all the other functionality. And I believe that's true of our mind, our body, and our spirit. We are deleting masses of the power that all of these things that create us have got. And if we unlock those, and I think you're right, if we could get the youth to realize their potential power. I did this experiment with the masterminders a couple of, maybe 4 months ago, where I got some packets of sunflower seeds, and I got the seed out, and it's sunflower seeds, quite tiny. And I said, look, okay, this is a seed. This is its actuality, yeah? So what's inside this seed? Well, inside is like the kernel. It's like a little ball of life waiting to come to life. So it's like dormant, yeah? Now, I see that most humans, their ego is like that. So as the little kernel's looking out, all it can see is the inside of the seed. All it sees is darkness and this world which is very tiny. But you see, if you plant that seed, and I gave the masterminders 2 seeds. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to plant these 2 seeds, and we're going to give them some energy. Yeah, because look, for this seed to germinate and come to life, set down roots and to grow, we need to give it the right conditions. So I believe humans are the same. We're not being given the right conditions to germinate. So the ego is how most of us see life. We think that's all there is, but actually it's because we've not germinated. So anyway, I said to him, look, you've got to plant these 2 seeds, and one of these seeds you've got to treat badly. Some of them weren't happy with doing that, but I said, look, you just got to, write red words on it. You're a shitty seed. You are horrible. I hate you. And but you just keep it on the side. And the other one, we're going to write green labels on. I love you. You are amazing. And we're going to water them with the same water. But on the water for the green seed, we're going to write love on the water. Just imagine that energy going in, and you're going to give that one. And on this one, you're going to write hate, and you're going to, But other than that, you're going to do exactly the same. And we're going to see what happens. So over the last 2 to 4 months, of course, the mastermind has been posting about their seeds. Now, all different things have happened. Not one of the red seeds has grown better than any of the green seeds. Not one.
Wow.
So I go, look, this is the potential. It's the potential of the seed as well. So the potential, if nurtured correctly, is that this seed can grow into this magnificent. I've got pictures of people with the sunflower come out, and it's bigger than they are, and that, of course, it's got like hundreds more seeds. That is like the next generation. It's right there, hundreds and hundreds of seeds that you could take and plant. And next year we could have a field all from one little seed. So my belief is that the human's the same. We just need to plant the seed correctly to nurture it. And I believe that awakening will happen with knowledge, information. But of course, we've got to find a way to get past the proving it, because actually the proof and evidence is in the result.
Yeah.
It's not. You can't have the proof and evidence till you got the result. So I say, look, we are all an experiment. If you experiment on yourself, you have the potential to grow to that amazing sunflower seed. But it's going to take love and some great green energy for it to reach its true potential, its real potential. People's red sunflower seeds, many of them just died. Some of them grew all funny. And some people's sunflowers, neither of them grew. But you see, I'm saying that this experiment is a reflection of you. Yeah. Whatever you do is a reflection of your beliefs, how you operate, your energy, everything that happens around you, everything you create, whether that's wealth, health, relationships, whatever that might be. If you give energy, you get a different experience than if you nurture it in a more red, negative, or the ego nurtures it. Yeah, it's if the ego nurtures, you get a very different result. So for me, this is my, thing is like what needs to happen to help as many young children to learn this, because actually before 7, how would it be that their switch is actually in the on position? And what we're actually doing is by teaching them the way we teach them, we're actually turning their switch off completely inadvertently. Because look, the truth is we don't know we've got a switch. So what we're teaching the children is what we think is going to keep them safe, keep them, when actually what we're doing is turn them off. And, just to finish off, there is a school. There are many books to read, of course. One book I'd encourage you to read, funnily enough, got a sunflower on the front of the book. It's called Anastasia. And it's one of a series of 9 books, which is very out there. When you read this book, it's either going to talk to you or you're going to go, that's just not possible or not true. But actually, it's a true story in the sense that it's written about a woman who would have a consciousness or an awareness today. She is alive today. She lives in Siberia, and she has got like the equal energy of any of the avatars, be that Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, whatever. Yeah. Now, she was brought up in nature. She's never been educated, but she has a wisdom beyond, anything the humans would know. So that's why you put her in that sort of avatar class. Anyway, this guy met her completely by chance, and he's written these books about her. I always say, look, Jesus didn't actually write a book. People wrote about him. Yeah. Buddha didn't actually write a book. Yeah. So this person has written these stories about her. And Anastasia is book one. Her name is Anastasia. Yeah. And she brings to the party this sort of way of looking at your humanness in a slightly different way. So I think it's a very good place to start. Is to sort of read something, see what finds you, whether it's like your Tony Robbins book, like it was that sort of like sparks or ignites a little flame in you that goes, do you know what? There's more than what I thought there was. And so I need to go on this journey of self-discovery. Or you could literally go down the more woo-woo and read something like Anastasia and go, yeah, is that truly possible? I mean, is that possible? And my belief is, well, from my own experience, 20 years, I lived 47 years in what I call the red world. I'm not saying I live completely green, because I believe that only 4% of people do that. I think it's very rare. What happens is your consciousness is sort of a bit of a moving feast, really. So depending on what's happening outside of you, you have, thoughts about that. You have emotionality about that. You have behaviors that are, automated about that. So to change that system, having done it for me for 47 years is actually not that simple. But 20 years in, I have a completely different life. And, I love every second of my life. I live it at a 10 out of 10. Just in terms of, my enjoyment of life, every moment I have is like amazing. So I feel very blessed to have this lady coming in my shop, giving me this book, because if she hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So there are moments in your life that are, where Tony Robbins always says your destiny is shaped. Yeah. So she shaped my destiny. I asked her years later, well, why did you tell me about the book? And she said that once I observe and I give them that book and then invite them to a seminar, because I see them as having massive potential that is restricted. It's not like it's locked down. And I was just going to tell you about Anastasia as well. I just went off on one of my loops there. Is that somebody read the Anastasia books and said, how would it be if we educated children using her teachings? Yeah. And when this school is in Russia, you can go online and check it out. It's called Tekos. I think it's Tekos. Tekos, yeah. There's a half an hour video there. And there's a couple of remarkable things about this school. Remarkable. Well, first, there's a lot of interviews with the kids because they're in it, they're experiencing it. Yeah. But I think a couple of remarkable things are, one is there are no teachers in that school.
Oh, wow.
So see how radical we have to think to change something. But that's very radical thinking, because if you think about it, it's like what they've learned is the best teachers of children are other children, not adults. Because what we're doing is we've got our belief system, and then we're telling them our belief system, which then shuts them down. Whereas actually, if you get a child who's never been shut down and get him to share with another child, suddenly you've got two open children. So this blew me away, for starters. So you'll see how it works there. They do not study the way that we study, in terms of like you do half an hour of maths and then an hour of English, then you do PE. It's like a diary of different things. What they do is they do one subject until they understand it fully. And they work in like teams of about 12 people, 12 kids. They're either all boys or all girls. And they live in the school. It's like, a boarding school. So they share a dormitory together. So they get to know each other intricately. And then like these kids will just study physics or chemistry or whatever it is. And they do just one subject, don't do anything else until they can all pass their exams. Now they've got kids there that can pass like your A levels at 10, because what happens is there's no beliefs that get in their way. He has a belief, the guy who came up with the idea of the school, that actually we're all born geniuses, and then what we're doing is we're shutting the genius down. So he's going like, how can we leave the genius open? and then suddenly we'd have a whole new type of human evolve. But of course, it's a very green way to do it, because, you know, well, anyway, it's worth half an hour of your life to watch it and just go, wow, you know, that's the sort of thing that is possible. But of course, it's like, you know, you look at YouTube and you go, well, how many people have watched that? And it'll be, you know, thousands. You know, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. It's a big job to go, right, how do we infect each other with, you know, green stuff instead of red stuff? That's sort of for me. So that's sort of, you know, that's my journey, really. What can I do as an individual to make that happen?
That is amazing, Tony. And I love talking to you. I could talk to you for about 12 hours about all this stuff. So I'm gutted that we've only got the time that we have. And I'm conscious that we're running over on time now. So I want to keep it brief.
No worries.
I always learn so much from talking to you. And I'm always blown away by the depth and breadth of your knowledge, but also how simply and effectively you're able to communicate that to the people around you as well. So
thank you.
I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm conscious that we're very far over the time that we sent. So
our front door's run.
Oh, we're on the move.
It's okay. We're on the move, sorry. Hey. Excuse me, Sam.
My heart.
Okay, that's that, yeah.
I need to sign.
Okay.
It's
sorry.
Controlled drug use.
Yeah. Is that good enough? Thank you very much. Brilliant. There you go. There's a massive example of the modern world in action. I just love it.
It's real life, people. This is real life.
Yeah, because literally, you know, Nikki's mum, who we are sort of carers for, yeah, she's 93 this year. And I went with her about, I don't know, a year ago to the doctors, because she has got, you know, she's mentally pretty good, but her body's, you know, not functioning very well. So she takes about 12 different tablets a day, 12 different drugs. So look, you know, the drugs and science keep her alive. So that's why I can't, you know, you can't knock it, yeah? But actually, I go to the doctors and she's in on a Zimmer frame and I'm helping her, and she sits down and the doctor's at his desk. Now, he's got about 10 minutes to help her because, you know, there's a big queue out there and that's how it is, yeah? So I don't knock anything. I just observe everything, yeah? So anyway, he's got his computer screen screwed to the wall, and then he's turned this computer screen towards her, and I'm thinking, look, she doesn't know what a computer is. She's from a different generation, you know? But anyway, he's literally showed her a list of all the drugs that she takes. And next to them, they've all got very long names, which you normally can't say. But I was shocked that she, at 92, she can say them. She knows how many milligrams are in each one, and she knows how many she takes every day. So she tells him that, you know, her leg's this and her, you know, tummy's this and whatever. And then literally I'm going, it's like a drug deal. You know, it was literally like a drug deal, because he's gone, right, I think we'll give you, you know, an extra 10 milligrams of this, and we'll give you 3 of those a day, and then, you know, 4 of them. And then literally, I'm just going, wow. She said, thank you. He didn't look at her, didn't examine her. They just had to talk about the drugs. And then we got back in the car, come home, and about half an hour later, that's who that was. He delivered literally a carrier bag type full of drugs.
Wow.
She has got more tablets in her cabinet, and he just delivered another. I don't know how much that will cost. But like literally this van comes around with this man, and then he said, you've got to sign because it's like a restricted drug. You know, they go, that is the modern world. And I go, look, please, I'm one generation behind her. I'm 30 years, well, I'm only 28 years younger than her, or whatever it is, yeah? And I'm going, I do not want to be in my 90s having a life like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we take massive, you know, responsibility for our body, you know, and mind, body and spirit. I'm working on all of those every day. You know, so I'm looking at what I eat, what I think, how I operate, everything, because, and I believe that, you know, when I look at other people my age, I go, wow, that's like crazy. It's crazy that and the only difference is they don't know what I know. And obviously you have to take action. I knew it and took action and experiment on myself. So yeah, it's phenomenal. So it's funny that he turned up there and then with his bag of drugs. Yeah.
That's amazing. Tony, can I ask how old you are?
65.
You look phenomenal for 65, and your energy is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for that. And yeah, I actually have some scales. When I first done my more recent, funny you call what you do bulletproof, yeah? Because there's a guy called Dave Asprey. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave
Yes, yeah,
Asprey's
very much so.
teaching, obviously bulletproof. So I've been following for getting on best part of a year the bulletproof diet, which is actually very interesting because obviously it's got coffee as part of it, yeah. But I also bought these scales which measure like 17 different parts of what's going on in your body. Only takes a few seconds. But since I've done the bulletproof diet, I've lost 5 years off my metabolic age.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which is one of the measurements that you get, yeah. And you go, no, that is mental, isn't it? You know, because you think about how many people don't, they want to stop themselves getting old. Well, you go, what you put past your lips is a major part of how you age. You know?
Big time, yeah.
So, so you go, wow, let's. That's where I talk about responsibility. But of course, and again, it's not making anybody wrong or blaming them. You literally go to the supermarket and you walk around and you go, so if I use the red and green analogy, where's the green food here? It's almost all what I would call red food, which is going to do things to your body, which is going to age it, make it function less well, and this is what everybody's buying, I mean, every week, trolleys and trolleys and millions and billions of pounds.
Yeah.
Everybody, everywhere doing the same thing. So yeah, unfortunately, you do have to be different. Sometimes you're seen as a bit of a nutter, but
that's right,
I go, look, yeah, but look, do you want my energy or not?
Well, that's it.
If you do, then I'll show you how to do it. So you have to wait for people to put their hand up and go, yeah, look, show me how to do that. But I do believe in the kids thing, massive. So my thing is, how can we, get them to know this stuff so they're doing this much earlier, so the next generation is more aware. I think that would be incredible.
Definitely. And just think of the difference that would make in the world, and how quickly as well, if we could just affect and get that through to the younger generations before they get that switch turned off and become egoic and fall into those same habits. What you mentioned some scales that you use there to measure 15 different metabolic properties of the body. What are the scales that you use?
They're called FitTrack.
FitTrack.
So very simple. FitTrack, just type that in, you'll find them. They're around about the 80 quid mark, 70, 80 quid. But literally, it's an app as well. So you've got your app on your phone, and then you can track, these 17 different things, and it's got graphs and all sorts of stuff. But actually just learn a little bit more in depth about your body and what's how to optimize it. We talk about optimizing our computer, don't we, or our phone, but how do you optimize your body? And that's why I love Dave Asprey, the bulletproof guy. He is, again, one of my reasons I moved towards his work is because for 10 plus years he has made his body his experiment.
Yes.
And I just go, wow, he's right up my street. So let me, put it, because look, he spent 10 years doing what he's done to his body. Why don't I take what he teaches and test it on me? And sure enough, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Nikki as well, she looks $1 million, absolutely. She's got more health, fitness, vitality than we've had for a few years, because we did Tony Robbins stuff for years. And then, we sort of fell off the wagon a little bit, like I say, it's a little bit like this, up and down. And look, if you do eat super healthy, it's a big commitment, because literally you go in the shops, you go, right, well, you can't eat any of it, Well, you can, but it's got the, if you're desperate, but, so I know everything in the shop, and whether, and I know what to do if I have to eat it. But look, I get myself in a position where I don't have to eat it very often. And I know if I do, what to do, and it's just that's why I go. It's all education. At the end of the day, it's a decision to educate yourself, because what everybody else is going to teach you is going to be what everybody else is doing, and that's getting the result it's got. And when you look at stats, whether it's crime or look at the guy yesterday. He's in Paris. What is going on for that sort of stuff to happen? And I mean, around the world, that's happening all the time. You think about Syria, then you think about Brexit. This is like madness compared to how the human could be. We don't need to do any of that. We just need to learn how to be green, because once you learn to be green, then everything changes. We wouldn't need a government like we've got. This is, again, a Victorian system. It's all based around a Victorian system, which is based around the ego, which works what I call dualistically. So that's why we've got a yes or a no. If you think about it, like the whole Brexit thing is, you voted yes or no. You go to the polls, you vote yes or no. It's a too big a thing for a yes/no question, which it wasn't in the 1850s when it was thought of. But it is. We live in 2020. I mean, for God's sakes, we have the ability. I mean, Boris said it yesterday. I'm always saying this. Look, we can watch the X Factor, which is a very red program. Even the cross is mostly red, we can watch that. We can do judgment at a very high level, which is what the ego does. It's all about judgment, really. And then we can vote, and within a seconds, they can count that vote and they can choose who's winning. So why are we having a referendum? I'm going, look, everybody's got a phone. Why are we not just pressing a button on your app?
Yeah, totally.
Because people could, given the facts, so that they've got all the facts, because most people's beliefs about these sorts of things will come from the news or the newspapers. Now, that is very filtered, very diluted. You're not seeing the whole facts. I've often said to people in our audience, who here doesn't like Donald Trump? Well, I mean, honestly, you can't believe how many people put their hands up. And I go, so who of you know Donald Trump personally? Well, no one. I said, well, where do you get all that from then? It's just a judgment based on something you've either read or watched. It can't have come from anywhere else. So you've built a belief. Yeah. So we infect each other with that. We infect each other massively. So you go, wow, how would it be that we didn't do that? It's like swapping. I often go, it's like, if you've been a Windows person, I used to be Windows. I had a Toshiba, and then one day I've gone, it's broken down, full up and all of that sort of stuff. So I go to Curry's, not the best place to buy a computer, but anyway. And the guy's gone, why don't you buy a Mac? And I go, oh no, I wouldn't want a Mac because I don't know how it works, and they're very expensive. So I just heard myself. I've got a load of beliefs about Macs. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, it was a time when Windows 10 came out, and he said, well, we're all on Windows 10 now. Do you know how to use that? And I'm going, well, I don't know. Never tried it. So he takes me over to a Toshiba, and sure enough, I couldn't use Windows 10. So he said, well, now would be a good time. Come and have a look at a Mac. Anyway, I touched it. It felt different. It looked different. And sure enough, I did buy it. It was loads more money, but you would not get me to get rid of my Mac now.
100% agree with that.
There was a pain barrier to use it. It took me about, it took me sort of, so maybe 6 weeks or so to keep phoning some bloke in Ireland going, how do you do that? Because on my Windows I used to do that, and now that doesn't work, So I go, it's the same. It's the same. There's a sort of a learning curve that you have to go through. Now, for example, I now drive a Tesla. I am a massive fan of Elon Musk because this man thinks differently, and look at what he's created. So, I bought one of his cars, and I said to someone the other day, it's like my Mac. You could not take that car away from me. In fact, I am not understanding why all cars aren't like that. That it doesn't make sense to be driving around with this big metal thing in it that pollutes the planet when you can have that. Yeah. Now, he has sold 1 million of those in 10 years, which is unbelievable, really. But compared to how many cars are sold, that's like nothing. But anyway, that's where I call it the evolution. 10 years ago, there were no electric cars. Now he sold 1 million of them. So that's it sort of in action. And that's what it takes. It takes one person to go, I'm going to do this. And then bit by bit by bit, it sort of moves. So that's why I'm going, maybe that's my job with Mind, Body, Spirit, to get people to see that actually they're running on Windows when they could have a Mac.
Yes.
And or they're driving a petrol vehicle when they could have an electric one, or they just haven't realized the potential of the machine that they're living at all. In fact, they've got it so shut down compared to its potential is unbelievable. So yeah, anyway, that's my thing.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of that, and you've shared so much value on the show today. And looking at the comments coming up on the live, lots of breakthroughs for people just listening to the stuff that you've talked about here. So, thank you very much for that. And I guess in summary, if you could go back 45 years to your 20-year-old self and just give yourself one piece of advice, just one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing will be to be more open. Because what I realize that your beliefs do is they shut you down. It's like you've got this model of life, which outside of which you just don't accept any of it. So if somebody says something that's outside of your model, for the most part, you just disregard it. And so I'd encourage people to just be more open, open to get excited, to discover things about yourself, about life, how it truly works. If you could get excited like I did, once I was 47, I got excited because suddenly I saw a whole possibility or a potential that previously I'd never seen. So rather than, be locked down like I would have been in my 20s, it's got to be like this, or it's not right. And that brought me years of pain and anguish, even though I made money. That's why I go, look, you can make money in the red world, but it won't make you happy.
Yeah.
Happiness comes in. Look, all the avatars says happiness comes from within. I now know that, but I didn't understand what that meant until I sort of discovered that, that you are a machine and you are in control of that machine, rather than, being the victim of the outside world being in control of you. So it's that switch. If I knew that when I was 20, it would have been a whole different ball game, But anyway, my journey was to learn that at 47. But today I just encourage people to, discover more about the ego. My favorite book on the ego is a book called Power versus Force. That is written by Dr. David Hawkins. It's quite a hard work book to read. You can buy it as recordings. You can buy the audio, of course, in today's world. But if you go onto Nightingale Conan, where you can buy lots of personal development type stuff, you can buy David Hawkins in a seminar. He's absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And so it's like the theory of the book rather than reading the book. A lot of people find the book quite hard work, but as he tells the stories and stuff, it's easier to take on board. But I believe that book really helps you discover your ego itself and what's the difference. So the red you and the green you, I sort of made the red and the green up from what I learned, just as a model, a simple model to go, right, there's these two parts of us. If I live this way or this way, I get massively different results. So, but Power versus Force, very, very, very good starting place.
And one of the things I love about your story, Tony, is that you're proof, living proof that you started this journey at 47. So there's lots of people out there who are very attached to this idea that, well, I am the way I am, it just is what it is. But actually you're living proof that that's not the case, and that you can at any moment in your life, whether that's when you're 10 years old or 50 years old, decide to make a change, decide to educate yourself and see things differently so that you can serve yourself and others better. And I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, one great saying I learned from Tony Robbins, I learned many, of course, is he does a little exercise where you do a bit of repetition. Repetition is one of the fastest ways to actually change something. So if you've got a negative, connotation to something, a belief, whatever you want to call it, actually overwriting that with something positive, it's not the easiest thing to do, because normally those things are set into your unconscious. So it's difficult to overwrite something in the unconscious with something consciously. And that doesn't mean you don't give it a damn good go, because otherwise you're going to live with this unconscious thing for a long time, yeah? And they're mostly the things that cause you the pain, yeah? So he came up with this little saying, which is, I now choose to. So you decide what you do want, you decide what choice you want to make, and then you just keep saying, I now choose to, I now choose to, and you put your thing on the end, yeah? So with anything, like I now choose to look at life through, different glasses. I now choose to eat healthy. I now choose to take responsibility for my mind, body, spirit. You can put anything on to I now choose to. But if you make that some sort of like an affirmation, and keep saying it over and over again, it does have a positive effect. So I now choose to is a great little thing, little tool.
That's brilliant advice. Who inspires you the most? If you had to just pick one person in the whole world, who would you say inspires you the most, and why?
Yeah, I don't think there's one person, because I do believe there's a multitude of different people that bring a part of the message. So I see it a little bit more like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like, if it was, I first of all thought it was like a child's jigsaw puzzle, and there was like 6 bits and you could sort of just put them into place. But I would say, as I put the 6th bit in place, it sort of expanded to 100 pieces, and I went to put the 100th piece in, and suddenly it was 1,000 pieces. So I believe that I've had different people along the journey who have taught me different aspects. So I would encourage you not to be a one-person person. I think there are different people who bring different things to the party. So I've had many different mentors. I encourage you to do, things that are completely seem mad, but just stay open and then go, let me experience that. So let me tell you, one person is one of my mentors who I absolutely think is incredible. And basically every year at Christmas, we do the thing, which again, you can buy the book, called Best Year Yet. It's an exercise that you do at the end of the year. And it's made up of normally 10 questions, but obviously Nicki Vee took those 10 questions, made them into 14 questions. So we always do the best year yet. We normally do it with all of our people. Everybody gets an opportunity to come and do it with us. We ask the questions, you write the answers, And anyway, on best year yet, last year, one of the questions is who's going to be your mentor for this year coming, yeah? So anyway, I've learned to allow my intuition, the ego. If you let your ego go down, your intuition fires off. And if you learn to hear it and trust it, but it's very quick and it's sometimes quite quiet, and you have to trust it. So anyway, when I was asked that question, the answer was like immediately there. But then, of course, I go, well, if I tell everybody else, they're going to go, yeah, that's proof you're completely mental. But anyway, I thought, you know what? It's what's come up. I wrote it down. So it's a guy who I've had speak at our events once, but I do believe the people weren't ready. It's like too woo-woo, too esoteric for so many people. But he is like a spirit guide. He is like a medium, we call him. I always go, he's quite big, so I go, you a medium or a large? But anyway, he's he calls himself a medium, yeah? And he channels or, connects with this ancient spirit who he calls White Feather. Who is a Native American Indian, yeah, but lives, he died, and now, he can connect with him, and he can literally turn him on. I mean, it's very weird when you see him do this, because he's quite a brummy guy, and then literally he does this whole bit of breathing, and his wife helps him, and he turns into this other person. I mean, when you see it, you go, whoa, that is weird. And then he speaks, and like, he's an ordinary brummy bloke, he's a very nice ordinary brummy. But then this person who he takes him over, or whatever happens, or how it happens, I don't really know. This person is like so wise, speaks words that this guy would never use. He hasn't got those words in his vocabulary. So I decided to have the person that he has, as my mentor. So I asked him if I could go to him every month for a year, so that he could I ask him questions, he gives me answers, So, and he said, oh, yeah, it actually exhausts him when he does it. So he said, could we do it once a quarter? So I said, fine. So I said to Nikki, will you come as well? Because we can both ask him questions, So we go along, and we've done it now 3 times. But then when the guy comes round, he records everything, and he's transcribed it, and he's making it into a book, which is really amazing. So we've got one more session to go. But what this man has said from the questions that I've asked him, is unbelievable. So for me, that is like stepping outside the box. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that you go, right, could that person give me something that I could use? And that's just about being open.
Of course, you don't know until you try, do you? You don't know until you step into that space.
No, and literally the guy can manage to do it for about 2 hours, and then he's like exhausted, and he says, he calls me son. This spirit calls me son. which is funny. Yes, son. And he's got such a deep voice, but he talks so much sense. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I've learned a lot from him. So that's the sort of thing that I would go. He has been my mentor for this year, and maybe next year will be someone else. So I've used all sorts of different people.
That's amazing.
So I don't really have one teacher. Honestly, I think that can be a bit restrictive. So, yeah, one person for a bit of time, take what you need, learn what you need to learn, obviously take action, because there's no point in doing anything. You know, there is one great film book called The Peaceful Warrior, where in it, Socrates, who's the main character, the spirit character, who's teaching a young guy called Dan. It's a fantastic film. You have to watch it with a notepad and pen to write down some of the amazing things that,
The Peaceful Warrior.
Socrates shares. Yes, it's called The Peaceful Warrior. You can watch the film. It's a bit of a B movie. Nick Nolte plays the main character of Socrates, yeah?
Okay.
But it's a fantastic film. And there's a moment in it where Socrates says to Dan, the student sort of thing, he said, look, you know, you're not just like born wise, you know, knowledge without action is completely worthless.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always took that. He actually sort of said, look, knowledge plus action equals wisdom, because without the experience, you can't be wise. You know, the wisdom comes from having had the experience.
The doing.
So that's
yeah.
why I encourage people to do things that are, it's like outside of your box. You are then going to have an experience. I call it experiential learning. So and this is the most powerful thing that will change your beliefs. Because if you think your average belief it's like inherited from somebody else or something you read, something you watched, something you heard, that sort of stuff. Whereas actually your wisdom will come from something you've acted on. So a bit like me with the crystals, I thought it was a bit out there and a bit dismissive of it. But then when I really found out what you could do with that and had that experience, then I became like a believer in crystals. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I utilize what I've learned. And that's why I don't think you should have one teacher. I think that different teachers bring different things to the party, which are your different pieces that you need for your jigsaw. So it's like we've got an individual jigsaw that we're filling in, you know. So that's the sort of way I see it.
That's a great way to explain that, and really insightful. Thank you. We're about to wrap up here now, Tony. I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've shared so much
Yes.
and been so generous with your time. So thank you very much. I know everybody
very
who's
welcome.
watched has really appreciated. Loads of people coming on and saying how awesome you are and how much they've learned from this session. So thank you. Finally, just let people know, where can they get in touch with you? Where can they work with you? How do they work with you? Tell people where they can get involved with this new program that you're launching. The floor's yours, sir.
Yes, thank you. Basically, obviously, Facebook's my thing. We're on Facebook. I'm Tony V, VEE. Just go friend me. You know, that's the easy way. I don't do that much on Facebook, but I will be launching this YouTube channel. So I will be telling people on my Facebook community. It's called the 10-10 Movement, how to live a 10 out of 10 life. And I'll be sharing lessons on that. Exactly what you need to do, things that you can experiment on yourself. So yeah, I should be launching that, well, definitely by the end of the year. So get on my Facebook, just friend me on there, and then you can get involved in the YouTube channel, share it with as many people as you can, and see if we could turn the world from a red to green, really.
Fantastic. I love it. What a great mission. Tony, thank you so much. And everybody who's tuned in and watched today, got involved
Awesome.
on the comments and emojis. You've been great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to come and watch this with Tony. Tony, thanks again once more for your time today and for dedicating this slot to come on the show. We really appreciate it. And you're a phenomenal human being. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Great to share anytime.
Have a great weekend.
Cheers, mate.
To you and everybody else. Take care now.
Yeah, and you.
Bye-bye. There we go, Mr. Tony V, ladies and gentlemen. I could have talked to that guy for probably another 6 days straight, to be honest with you. I've got a notepad here just kind of making notes of all the stuff he's talked about and various different questions I wanted to ask. And there were some questions from the people on the live feed as well, which I just didn't get round to. I feel like if I could could have had Tony here in person. That interview could easily have gone on for a solid 3 or 4 hours. So I think definitely Tony's going to have to be somebody that we get back on the show to kind of continue the conversation. So what do I want to say here now? So a few resources from that podcast. Apologies firstly actually for the broken audio there on Tony's audio. Obviously mine is fine because I'm recording it this end here locally, so there's no internet to contend with, but obviously my guests will come in, well, for the most part come in via Facebook Live, so we're relying not only on my Wi-Fi but their Wi-Fi or data there end as well, and we've obviously had a few issues there today, but for the most part, I'm sure you'll agree that the content was just fantastic. Tony, a lot of his stuff did come through very clearly. So if you've got any questions around stuff where you're really getting into it and all of a sudden the audio started cutting out or it got a bit choppy and you're not clear on exactly what that was, then you've got two options. You can either get in touch with me and I'll help clarify, or you can just connect with Tony. As I'm sure you'll agree, he's a phenomenal guy, and you're not going to regret connecting with him. You're going to learn a lot. So do go and connect with him on Facebook and keep an eye out for his 10-10 movement coming up imminently. In terms of resources, things that I am definitely going to be checking out are the Anastasia book, the Tekos School in Russia, which was the new way, where the kids teach the kids. I'm definitely going to get myself some Fit Track scales because I've got some basic ones, but that sounds amazing, being able to monitor and measure 15 different metabolic processes in the body. And then there's Power versus Force and The Peaceful Warrior as well, which I think were books, and The Peaceful Warrior, he said, was a film. So go and check those out too. Loads of great resources there, loads of really insightful knowledge there coming through from Tony. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is be open. Just be open to different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things, and don't be afraid. Sometimes there's things that I've been involved with or tried, but that when I've tried them, I've been thinking, this is horseshit. This is woo-woo bullshit. That's someone's just making stuff up and having a laugh at my expense here. But I do it anyway, even when there's things like that I feel that way about. And that's fine. But the most important thing to note there is that I don't go in with that attitude. Now, I may have those thoughts in the background, but when I'm going into that and I'm trying that new thing, however crazy it might seem, I have to try really hard to make sure that I'm very neutral and very invested in the process, because at the end of the day, if you come into something in a negative way, believing that it isn't going to work or that it's all bullshit, then it's probably not going to work for you, or it's not going to work anywhere near as well as it could. So it's really important to put your limiting beliefs, put those belief systems to one side just while you try it out, because if you're going to do something, you've got to play full out. You've got to give it your all, and you've got to really invest in it. Otherwise, you can't expect to get any results. So to be fair to yourself and to the process, you've got to think, right, okay, well, whether I think this is bullshit or not, let's just go all in, play full out, and give it a go, because you never know. You never know. And if I play full out, maybe this will do something for me. And it doesn't matter if it's working in the way that the person says it's working. Does it really matter? It's like placebo. Does it really matter if you're just eating sugar, if actually it helps you to heal your own body? Does it matter if Reiki works or not, if actually going through a Reiki session can help you to feel better? Well, no, it doesn't. It just matters that it works. So, I'm a big believer that actually, if you believe in the process, I think that's the most powerful thing. And if you believe it can work, just look at placebo. You believe you're taking a drug that will help you in whatever your ailment is, and because you believe, your body does what it needs to do with no help from anything external to fix it. So if that's the case, and you can believe that Reiki does what it does, you can believe that there are mediums that can channel spirits from another world, as woo-woo and crazy as that might sound to you, if you believe it and that produces a positive result in your life, is it really a bad thing? I'd say not, and doesn't matter how woo-woo it is, if it helps you, if it helps other people. It doesn't. What's important here is not what's right and wrong, because people get very wound up and very invested in discussing and arguing over what's right and what's wrong. My opinion's this and your opinion's that. Whereas actually it's more a better question to always ask is, fuck what's right and wrong. What serves me? What serves the people in my life? How can I be a better version of myself in a way. And when I say better, again, it's qualified by serving. You know, how can I serve myself and others at a much higher level? So there's some great takeaways for you to take away following this show. Absolutely love talking to Tony, and I hope you enjoyed listening to him as much as I enjoyed interviewing him. He was great. So that is it. Don't forget to go and download the Bulletproof Business app, where you can get world-class business consulting, coaching, and mentoring completely free. The first 1,000 people in the app get full access to all of the amazing tools and features that are coming out over the next few weeks. So get yourself in there, bit.ly/bulletproof Android if you're a filthy Android user, and bit.ly/bulletproof business for Apple users. Get in there, say hello, introduce yourselves, and sit back and wait for the fun, because it's going to be one hell of a party. Next week we have Friday the 11th of October, 10:30 a.m. Barry Collins is booked onto the show, but hey ho, guess what? It ain't gonna fucking happen, because I'm gonna be up a mountain with my good friend Mr. Kevin Benison. So I need to get in touch with Barry. So what I'm hoping is, I need to confirm this, what I'm hoping is I'm going to be able to move that podcast over to the Thursday the 10th of October. So look out for that. If you're connected with me on Facebook, look out for that going out live at 10:30 a.m. on Thursday the 10th of October. That's the next episode, and that's with Barry Collins. So that is it from me for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for tuning in, for downloading, for listening. Please do make sure you subscribe to the show so that you can get these as soon as they're ready, dropped into your phone inbox or computer or whatever it is that you use to listen to these crazy things. And leave us a review. You know, if you've ever enjoyed the show, if you're a regular listener, or even if this is your first time and you know what, you thought Tony was absolutely phenomenal, please do show your appreciation and support by jumping onto iTunes and leaving us a quick review. It helps other people get a good feel for what the show's about, what kind of content it is, and helps them get access to the very best in personal development and peak performance hints, tips, and tricks. So that's it from me, ladies and gents. Have a good day, night, evening, morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. And until next time, stay optimized.